All right. Well, we're live now. Looks like our audio is good. I see we've got a couple of people watching. So let's see. All right. Welcome to our Q&A in the Shop Marketing Pros clients only Facebook group. This week, or this month, I should say, we have Chris Cotton from AutoFix Shop Coaching with us. And we're going to talk about all kinds of stuff today. And Chris, why don't you start out just by introducing yourself and telling us a little bit about AutoFix?
Oh man. Um, so here we go. This is like the second time in the last 3 or 4 days you've just kind of like blindsided me, right? So
Uh huh.
the hits continue.
That's
So my
that's
name's
what I do.
there you go. So my name's Chris Cotton. I'm a former multi-shop owner. Um, Recently I just bought another shop, but to talk more about AutoFix Auto Shop coaching, I had hired a shop coach to help me, or a shop coaching company, when I owned my shops. Went through the process, came out the other side, and they're like, "Hey, we think you'd make a great coach. Would you like to work for us?" And I said, "Sure." And I went through all the training, went to their site, did that for about 2 years, and absolutely hated it. Like, I've always been self-employed for the most part. Didn't like some of the processes and the way they treated people, and so I left them. And several months later, one of my clients said, "Hey, I left them. Would you be interested in coaching me?" And I said, "Sure." And boom, here we go. Here we are. Gosh, 12 or 13 years later now, I think at this point, and multiple coaches that work for me, and then we do shops all across the United States, Canada. We've even taught some in Puerto Rico previously, not currently, but all over the place.
So I want to. We're going to talk about a lot of just the regular kind of stuff that coaches would talk about, but
Okay.
you know I um, I know a few things about you and some of the things that are different in the way that you do things, and I want to start out by talking about a couple of those things.
Okay.
One of the things that impresses me the most about you and your clients and the way that you work with them, because we have a lot of mutual clients, so
Absolutely.
we get to see the results of each other's work. But you're big on mindset, and what I'm talking about specifically is I will see where the entire industry is screaming about how they're low on work. They need more cars. There's not enough going on. And your many of your clients, if not all your clients, are having record months during that time. And I know that you are big on them having a mindset shift to be able to do that. That might be one of the most valuable things that our listeners could hear from you today is about that. So let's just start off strong and get right into that.
So, the first thing we typically hear is, "Oh, you know, January is always slow, the fair's in town, whatever." Like, there's always a reason not to be able to do something, right? Like, so you can either fall into that, or you can be like, "Hey, you know what? January is always slow. This is the first January ever that we're going to break records." And a lot of times when we get new clients, they come to us and they're like, "Okay, well, I just want to let you know that January is going to be slow." And I'm like, "I'm not going to accept that. I'm not going to accept that it's slow. Like, you can tell me it's slow, and I believe that you believe that it's slow, but it's not going to be slow. Like, we're not going to accept that. And here's what we're going to do." And just lay out the game plan, and you just have to. What I find from shop owners is a lot of times they don't start pushing their goals, or start pushing for their goals, until the end of the month. Like when the when you could have done something about it, they wait until it's passed. And so you have to be pushing just as hard on day one as you are on day 28, 29, 30, 31. And I just don't accept it. The funny thing is we do a lot of work remote, so there's not really much I can do about it other than just talk you through it, be there and be like, "Hey, why aren't you doing this?" But people respond to that. People are like, "Oh crap, Chris says I can't do that, so then I have to do better." and it seems to work.
So what does that look like when you're laying that out with the client? What are some of the action steps that they need to take when they historically have seen, this has always been a slow month, and my coach is telling me, nope, we're not accepting that. We're going to have a record month, or we're going to at least have a great month. What are the things that you're working with them to make sure that it's not same old, same old?
I think to be as basic as possible and be able to explain it as well as possible, it always comes back down to the processes and procedures. So, when you're at different levels of your business, you're at different levels of your processes and procedures. Um, I just famously, we had a client that started with us in November a couple of years ago, and then we had the same conversation. November, we started putting some things in place. December, and then he's like, "Oh, well, January we always lose money, and we're not going to be able to do very well." And I was like, and I think I've shared this story with you before. I was like, "Absolutely not. We're not going to accept that. You're going to have the best January ever, and here's how we're going to do it." At that point, they were new enough with me where it was some of the simple stuff. What are we doing with scheduling? Are we doing a great DVI? What does our estimating process look like? And how are we versus our average repair order goals? And so you fast forward to where that shop is now. We just had the best January and February, beating last year's January and February, when previously they were always like, well, we can't do that. And so what we've done is we've moved from kind of like the basic processes and procedures to the like next level processes and procedures. So there's different processes and procedures at different levels of your business that you can do in order to keep you moving. And so kind of like at the mid-level now, we're going deeper into scheduling. We're going deeper into the estimating process and building relationships and phone skills and things like that. So a lot of it's similar, a lot of it shifts a little bit, but really it's just the basics. Like usually what happens in a business that's not doing as good, it's because the owner, whoever's in charge, has slipped on the processes and procedures, and either, business has been pretty good here lately. People get fat and happy and they're okay until it's not okay. And then it's too late. But you just have to hold your people accountable and follow the processes and procedures. And also as an owner, you have to be a coach. You have to learn how to coach your people at that point and work them through those things. Hopefully that makes sense.
Yeah, what I'm hearing you say is that they go into a month, and they believe that month is going to be a bad month, so they just
Right.
kind of they kind of lay down.
Right.
They stop doing the things that make them money. It's like they stop doing the DVI on every vehicle. They stop writing up everything that it needs. So because they're relaxing, they're getting complacent because they believe it's going to be a bad month. It
Right.
actually becomes a bad month. But if they would just stick to the process, basically act like it's July or August, operate
Right.
the business like that, then they're going to see July, August kind of numbers.
Well, and a lot of the time, and this goes back to, I know you guys do some stuff on like the marketing calendar and being prepared and before. Like I don't understand why shop owners haven't figured this out yet. Like, okay, September's always a bad month. Well, then guess what? It's March now. We need to be planning for September. Like, what are we going to do to make sure the phone rings in September instead of waiting to call you August 29th and be like, hey, September's always slow. Can you fix that for me? There's not a magic bullet for that. And people have to be prepared at least 6 months in advance, I think, for anything that they might perceive as slow. Like, what are you doing today for the end of the year?
Yeah, 100%. And from what I have seen, now we work with a lot of really great shop owners, and many of the people who are in this group, I would venture to say most of the people who are in this group are not like this. But many of the shop owners that I see, they will wait until they have no cars and it's the same time of year that they didn't have cars last year and they didn't have cars the year before, but they will wait until that time to start to do something about it. When in actuality, like when we get into the fall, for example, we'll see, some of these months that are historically not that great, but they were preceded by months where they had more work than they knew what to do with. And they
Right.
could have scheduled, like, the clients that they know, these are longtime clients. They're coming back. They're going to do these repairs. They could have been scheduling them into their historically slow times to do that work and doing all of that work and getting people in quicker back in July, August, when they had more work than they knew what to do with.
Well, so I think there's two things. Like, number one, I'm going to call it, like, I wish I could come up with a funny Big Bang Theory name for this, but this is like the Christmas parable or the Christmas parallax. Like, I see people on Facebook all the time complaining about, oh, I don't have any money for Christmas, or I don't have this for packages, I don't have that. Christmas comes the same day every year. Like, it just comes down to planning. Like, Christmas isn't any different for anybody else. It's just how you plan about that and when you start preparing for that. And then the other thing is shop owners now in the last 6 months, a year, 2 years have been awful proud of being booked out 3 to 4 months. Well, think about all those people you turned away in that 3 to 4 months that are never calling you back after you paid to make the phone ring. They decided on you and they called, and then they called and you're like, oh, we're too busy to take you right now. They're going somewhere else. They're going to my shop or one of my client shops because we told them yes and figured it out. And that could be another reason why we're not slow. So I don't know.
So at what point in booking, when someone is booking weeks or months out, at what point should they be looking at, we need to add a tech, we need to add some base, we need to add a satellite location or whatever?
If you're consistently a week out, something's wrong, I think. Like you should be able to figure it out. And this is like a lot of stuff that I've talked about. You have to have it. And all of these, we could write down these topics and do other podcasts or whatever on all of these things, right? And I know people are going to be like, well, but anyway, there's a basis for all of this. You need to have a technician in every bay. You cannot convince me otherwise of that. You need to, there's a solution for this for every shop, but every shop's going to be different, right? Because we're all different. Michael and I taught a great service advisor class at Vision this week. So you can, if you want to talk to Michael about it more, you can. But at one point we were talking about scheduling in the class, and people have these rigid schedules and they're like, oh, I booked this guy for this time. I booked her for this time. And then if something happens and we can't get parts, or we have the wrong part or break a part, or they don't show up, then it just blows your schedule away. And so I kind of asked for the most productive people in the room and asked them how they do it. And one guy, he said, our productivity's in the high 160s, almost 200% productive sometimes. Another guy was consistently over 100%. And they went through and talked about everything that they did, and neither one of them mentioned schedule at all. Didn't have anything to do with the schedule. So scheduling will not make you productive, I don't think. Mm-hmm. And I would love to talk to other people that can have a fully booked schedule and be 150% productive or whatever. I'm sure there's some out there. We just don't see it that much.
Yeah. So what are the most important KPIs that you look for with your clients?
I mean, every shop's different, but if I'm like in the very beginning, one of the most important KPIs I think is average estimate. If your average estimate isn't high enough, if you're not doing a good DVI, then nothing else really matters, right? And then so after that, you've got average repair order. And then to tie those together, you've got closing rate or closing ratio for the service advisor. Because if you're trying to figure out what your shop sales look like, if we have if we're trying to get to a $1,000 average repair order and our average estimate's $1,500, but we only close 50% of what we write, then that's going to put us in the 750 range. So there's a correlation between all three of those. And then if I just did 5, then you've got gross profit and then net profit. Like those 5 would be if I could give you any 5, those would be the 5 I would start with. But there's about 25 really, really good ones to kind of keep an eye on. And just like we were talking about just a minute ago with having a tech in every bay productivity is just as important as technician productivity. Because you can have one technician that has 3 bays and he can be 100% productive, but then those 3 bays are 30% productive. And so, that's a big difference in what you can get out of that shop.
So, I said from the beginning that I know you, and when I asked you that question, I knew that average estimate was going to be the number that you threw out there, and that's not something that I hear a lot of people talking about. When we get to talking about shops, we talk about revenue and ARO, net profit and all of that, but the average estimate is probably the one that is talked about the least, and here you are saying that's the most important number.
I mean, everything goes to that, right? Like when we see a shop struggling, that's one of the first things we look at. Like, how good is your DVI process? Do you even have a DVI? What's your average estimate? I think there might be one more coaching company that mentions average estimate a little bit, but we've been talking about it for 2-3 years. And honestly, I think it's, outside of closing ratio and average repair order, that's one of the top ones. I can stand in a room and talk to 50 shop owners and ask them what their average repair order goal is and their average estimate is, and tell you probably what's wrong with most of them. And most of them couldn't tell you what their average estimate is, and some of them don't even have an average repair order goal or don't have a way, they don't know where they should be trying to get or anything else like that. So
yeah, when I had my shop, there was a guy, his name was Larry Moore, and Larry had developed a piece of software called QuickTrack. And at the end of the week, I would always plug in all of the repair orders and the things that it was looking for. It didn't look for average estimate, but it was looking to make sure that a multi-point inspection, which we didn't do DVIs back then, but that a multi-point inspection was done on it, and then an estimate was written based off of that. And anytime that my numbers were down, I knew what I was going to find before I ever got in there. And it's the same kind of thing with this average estimate that you're talking about. What is the average estimate that you tend to look for with a typical shop?
It goes to closing ratio, right? Like, and again, I don't want anybody to be out there like, oh, he's like super salesy, he's super busy, because I am not. Like we in our shop that we run and everybody that we coach, we're like, do a great DVI, do the wraparound services, offer preventative maintenance, and just take care of the customer. And then, if you do that and build a relationship, they'll take care of you. Every shop's different, Brian. Like it really goes to the closing ratio and what we need to do to close. But for most shops, their average estimate needs to be double whatever their average repair order goal is, because most of them are closing 50% or less. So if you're looking for a $600 average repair order, your average estimate needs to be probably $1,200, depending on your closing ratio. The good thing about a lot of these shop management systems is they tell you what your closing ratio is in there, as long as you're not fudging the numbers. Because one thing we see is we have service advisors that'll go in there, they'll estimate everything, they'll approve what got approved, and then they'll delete what got declined instead of just declining it. And then it's like, oh, well, we presented 100 hours and sold 100 hours. There's no shop out there closing 100% of what they write. Not if they're actually writing what they should.
So what's keeping most shops from having the average estimate that they should?
Again, this goes back to processes and procedures, right? Like they don't have they don't have any type of process. They don't have a procedure. And this slides into my shop all the time. Like I go and do repair order audits, and I look, and you kind of look at the trail, right? What was the original write-up? What did the tech see? What did they do on the inspection? Did we estimate it? And then did we present it? And then, how did it follow up with the customer? And we see breakdowns in all of those. Like one week, it might be a technician that's having a bad week, and so they don't do the 8 to 12 pictures and videos that they should. The next week, the technician's doing a great job, but then the service advisor's not estimating anything. So, I mean, it's a process and procedure, and you just have to follow up and make sure that make sure that everybody's doing their job, basically.
So you were a shop owner before you were a coach, and
Mm-hmm.
then you went to just being a coach. But
Yep.
then last year you ended up buying a shop.
Yep.
So now you own a shop and you're a coach. I'm curious, how has the experience of firsthand owning a shop again, how has it changed the way that you're doing anything with your clients, if at all? Has it shifted your perspective or your mindset on anything, or has it just kind of confirmed for you?
It's shifted a couple of things. I mean, I was pretty in touch with what was going on in the industry. All of my coaches are shop owners, so we talk and whatever, and kind of go through there. Um, uh, People are different now than they were 10, 12 years ago. And then strikingly similar, like we do quite a few tires. So used to 10, 12 years ago, when somebody walked in, you kind of had to walk them through the process, because there wasn't much of that knowledge on the internet, right? So we had to be their guide and somebody. But now people come in and they're like, "Hey, I have this car and I want these tires. How soon can you have them?" So that part has changed. The other thing that I've noticed, and I don't know if it's just our community, we take a lot more checks than I've ever taken ever in the past. Like even when we had our shop 12 years ago, I don't think we took as many checks as we take now. Um, we've never had any issues with them, but we have customers that come in all the time. And originally I thought, oh, well, these are older customers that that's the way they want to pay. That's the way they've always paid. But we have customers of all ages that pay in checks and cash. We take a lot more cash than I ever thought we would have. Um, so that's that part of it. Working with employees is different, just their expectations of the owner, um, how they want to be treated, the way they think about things. Um, we knew cars were changing and we have hybrids, electric vehicles, and all that. Um, and I would just say you just have to be prepared for that on whatever level you want to be. And then two, the way we connect with customers as far as like an advertising, branding, marketing standpoint has probably been the biggest change, I think. Because back when we had our shop, we had a snow day, and I built my website in one day on a snow day. And before that, I had one of the first Facebook pages in the area, and I ranked first on a Google search just based off my Facebook page. And now I don't think that you could ever do that with anything. So you have like AdWords, local service ads, SEO, website, like all of those things are huge and way more important than they were. And then of course you've got DVI, shop management systems, but now that's me comparing to 12 years ago instead of just recently. But there's a little bit of each of that you're like, oh, huh. That's interesting. And again, we're just like 6 months into this, so I'm sure there's more that we'll find. Parts, which we knew parts has always been an issue, but it's different for me coaching somebody saying, hey, parts situation sucks, and that's the way it is, to actually having to depend on a parts supplier and watching our guys, install a radiator or a water pump or a thermostat only to start it up to have it fail even before it left the shop, which I guess if you're going to have it fail, that's the best time to do it. But yeah.
So, all right, hot topic.
Okay.
Without going political, what do you think the tariffs are going to do to our industry?
I know it's going to make it more expensive, right? So that's just going to happen. There's nothing we can do about that. I think we're being hurt more right now, being in this in between state of, oh, I'm going to tariff you, and then we're like, oh, we're going to pass that off for a month, and we're not going to tariff you. Like for me, just rip the Band-Aid off and do it if we're going to do it. Outside of that, I think it's going to be great for our industry because now you're going to have somebody that was going to go buy a $50,000 car or a $90,000 truck, and now that truck's going to cost $105,000, or the car is going to cost $60,000, $70,000. And so people are still going to continue to not buy vehicles, and the average age of the vehicle is going to go up I think into 2026. So again, the newer cars are less reliable than the cars that we had 10, 12 years ago. So you need to make sure that you're into fixing cars. Don't pass on the preventative maintenance. Make sure you're doing that. I think we're still going to be good for another 2 years. And we're still, at the same time, we still have more people retiring out, quitting. So we have more cars per bay than we've ever had, I think, in the last 15, 20 years as well.
So as tariffs impact the parts, stick to the matrix as it is. Any adjustments that need to be made? What does that look like?
So we're going to have to make adjustments. For those that you have followed me and listened on the Weekly Blitz and everything else, I've talked about like an inflation adjusted parts matrix, which we started using towards the end of COVID. And it's been interesting because as I've been teaching the last couple of months for the trade shows, I'll ask a group of owners like, hey, has your parts margin fallen down like 3-4%? And then the whole group will raise their hand. And I'm like, that's because parts prices have gone up and we have not adjusted the parts matrix for that. We're probably going to have to do that again at some point and adjust it up another couple of points to make sure that we're still hitting, 50, 52, 55% on average where we need to be.
All right. So when it comes to the owners that you work with, I feel like in this industry, leadership is something that we could all do better at. I'm curious how you work with your owners to become better leaders.
It's really hard. I think it's hard because we're remote, so we really can't get there to them. But the best way to do it is just talk about it and have a lot of conversations. Like I said earlier, we have to get the owners from where they're so busy in the business to where they're working on process and procedures. We have to turn every store owner, shop owner ever into a coach so that they can coach their people and coach accountability. So it's more towards that. And it's more through discussion. I would love to tell you, read this book and you'll be a better leader. I mean, those are out there, but it's something that you work on every time. Like it goes back to setting expectations. Like if you're an owner and you leave for a week, like what were the expectations for sales, average estimate, average repair order, like all that? Like what did you want to accomplish? What did you want them to accomplish while you're gone? And then what do those talks look like? How do you follow up with it when you get back?
Yeah, I did a podcast episode not long ago titled "What Do You Look Like When You're Not There?"
Yeah,
and it is about that exact thing. And I'll never forget the first time that we left our shop to like go on a vacation for a week or 10 days or whatever it was, and we were scared to death to do it. And when we came back, they had performed better than when we were there. And I don't know that really had anything to do with us specifically. Like, we certainly were not and are not, those masterful leaders back then. But I think that the team just wanted to prove, that, hey, we've got this. And that was a great thing. But I think a lot of that has to do with culture, and I know that culture and leadership are certainly aligned. But what do you look for in a great shop culture?
I honestly, at this point, I love people that get along, people that coach each other and hold each other accountable. Seems like I've had more people with fist fights in the shops this last 2 weeks than ever. I can't remember the last time I had anybody that had a technician fist fight in their shop, and now I think I've had 3 in the last 10 days, and it's just
Wow.
Yeah. And I don't know if like people are feeling the tension of the world or what it is, but anyway, people that hold each other accountable, maybe too accountable in some of these instances, but people that are watching, and like you said, like what are these people doing when you're not there? What are they doing with each other? Does somebody see somebody not put on a part properly or not put on all the parts, and then do they call them out on it? Do they tell ownership? Like, what do they do? There's like 100 instances of that going on every day in your shop. And so if those things are not happening when you're not there and people are holding accountable, then I think that's a great culture. And you could go into like team building and everything else, but really, like you said, what do they do when you're not there? What do they do? Do they still do, how do you put this? Do they still do what they do when you're not there when you are there? Like if you were working up front, would they still hold each other accountable and do everything else? I think that's culture to me.
Yep. So, question about AI.
Okay.
How are you using AI in your shop? And what do you think about some of the new like AI phone systems and things like that?
I haven't heard any of the new phone systems. I talked to Braxton a little bit, and he said that you can't tell the difference between it, and it wouldn't surprise me like you could or couldn't. Uh, the two that we use the most in our shop are ChatGPT, and then there's a plugin called Detect Auto, which really helps me out. And then we're training a new service advisor, so I think it's really helping him out. Try to explain it like when a customer's at your desk or at your table, wherever you're at, and you have their comment or concern in, you can click the button, it opens a side pane, and then it helps you generate more questions to ask. Like say somebody came in for a engine diagnostics, and then you start answering these questions and asking the questions and typing in, and then it generates more questions for you to ask. I think that's one of the most helpful things going right now. There's some stuff that's out there. I think it all has a place. You just have to figure out where to use it in your shop. But then I also did a podcast that, I feel like some of us are over using technology too much. Like you have to figure out where to use it, how to use it. Does this customer okay with it? Is this customer not okay with it? What does that look like?
Yeah, it's kind of like back in the day with IATN and other things like that. We started, I mean, that was nothing compared to the technology that we're using now. Basically, just a message board. But I think that it actually made us weaker as technicians in some ways, because we always, we would start to go for the silver bullet rather than doing the diagnostic. And
right,
I was a tech and an owner at that time, had not transitioned into that place where I was working on the business yet. But I think that AI, it's got so much potential to help us in so many ways. But I do believe that you're right. With technology in general, if we use it too much, then it can take away our own edge.
Right. And I'm all for any technology that makes us more productive. And I don't know, you may know better than me, but there's some great online scheduling tools now. There's some great stuff like that. Whether it's AI or not, it's probably not true AI, but it makes us more productive and lets us, spend more time with the customer, do other things. So anything like that, I'm okay with.
So, as we get close to wrapping up, you have 3 podcasts.
Yep.
Tell us about these podcasts and,
okay.
and what people might get from each of them. And I'm trying to get you to start a 4th one. But
I'm working on it. I've got to, we can tell everybody now, I'm getting ready to do a podcast about it. Our daughter Piper, which I know you guys are awful proud of your son, Peyton, and everything he's doing. She's getting ready to graduate in 59 days. I have it up on my board over here. With a double degree achieved in 4 years in political science and German. But what most people don't know, and you guys didn't know, when we went on a cruise, not this January, but last January, I started back to college to finish my bachelor's degree. So she graduates in 59 days. I graduate in 60 days with my bachelor's degree. So I've done almost 50 hours of college online courses in the last 18 months.
wow.
So I'll have time for that 4th podcast after I get that done. I just got to get through this last 8 weeks. We just finished finals for that last 8 weeks and whatever. So the oldest podcast you can listen to on the Aftermarket Radio Network, it's the Weekly Blitz with Chris Cotton. We have over 200 episodes now. That's more for shop owners, but anybody can listen to it. I just talk about, gosh, whatever I'm thinking that day, whatever I'm feeling. Sometimes we talk about numbers, sometimes we talk about, leadership culture. Sometimes we talk about service advisors. Like I go through the whole thing. Every once in a while, I'll read a book and want to kind of like cut it down into shorter pieces and talk about it. And then if somebody else wants to read it, they can, or listen to it in an audiobook. The other podcast we have is the AutoFix Technology Cast, which I have. The first one, the Weekly Blitz, is usually just me by myself. We try to keep all these shorter, 20, 30 minutes or less, because that's what we've heard from shop owners. The AutoFix Technology Cast is just about, the technology that we use in shops. So again, anybody can listen to it, but we've talked to Cinch. We've talked to, I did Garage Gurus. That's coming out, Auto Shop Loaners. And usually that's in a format where I'm interviewing somebody else. And then we have the one, of course, that Michael does, Michael Doherty, the AutoFix Advisor Cast, which is more targeted for service advisors. But then if you're a service advisor and if you're an owner and still working on the service counter, hopefully you can get some great insights out of that as well.
All right. Well, awesome. So if somebody wanted to get in touch with you, what is the best way for them to do that?
The best way to get to me is autoshopcoaching.com. That'll take you to the website. You can look at the other resources. We have some webinars that we've done that you can't find on YouTube or anywhere else there. And then from there, you can just schedule a consultation. I'll talk to anybody, anytime. Just get on my calendar and fill out the information and go. You have our YouTube, autoshopcoaching.com, or AutoFix Autoshop Coaching, Facebook, Instagram as well. You can go all of those places and find us as well.
All right. Well, man, thank you for being on here with us today. I know that that our clients get a lot out of this. I should have said this in the beginning when I was opening up, but we do this once a month in the group, and we have various coaches and industry professionals come in and just talk about topics that we think can help our clients, and also it introduces them to the other people in the industry and kind of allows them to get to know what they're all about. So yeah, thanks again for being on here. I'm like forcing myself to not do a podcast outro because
Okay.
that's what it feels like right now.
Right.
But hey, seriously, thank you for being here with us again today.
You bet. Thanks for having me.